Folks, there's this little thing called the circle of life, right? There is life, you live it, and then there's death. Well, in Gator football and in the Billy Napier era right now, we're at the point in the circle where the Gators are coming off one of his big, big wins. Will the circle continue of the cycle of after the big win, the downfall comes, or we turned a corner finally here in Gator Nation? Welcome in to the In All Kinds weather forecast. I am your host, Chris Yanes, here in the heart of Gator Nation. And joining me tonight, we have our founder, Neil Schulman, giving his hot takes from the big victory over LSU. Preview also the Ole Miss game, and then he's going to get into a little bit of the article work that he's going to be dropping over and on the All Kinds Weather Forecast website. But before we dive into the show today, we've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss a single episode of the In All Kinds Weather Forecast. And hey, don't forget to hit that like button right there. If you're fired up still about that LSU win this past Saturday and excited for that Ole Miss game, tell us about it down below in the comments. Your reaction to the LSU game and your preview for the Ole Miss game. Folks, we're reading comments now live here on the air, so we're going to continue to do it like I said we would. We'll do it maybe a little bit here tonight, and then we'll do it even on when I drop my preview for the Ole Miss game later in the week. And if you're listening on any of our audio platforms, please take a moment to rate and review the show. Leaving a 5-star rating really helps us reach even more listeners. We appreciate it, Gator Nation. And we want to shout out our sponsors of the show. The In All Kinds Weather Forecast is proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants. And they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's saving for your child's college, investment advice, or even your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, contact them at 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. And we want to shout out the official apparel partner of the In All Kinds of Weather Forecast, Heads and Tails. Neil sporting the Heads and Tail hat. I've got the reversible hat that they sell in store or online at theheadsandtails.com. And we have our promo code IAKOW30 for 30% off in store or online at theheadsandtails.com. And if you're here in the Tampa Bay area this Thursday night, make sure to join them for their annual Sip and Shop event in store. It helps support the local Gator Club, and you can even use our code in store for 30% off. That's IAKOW30. And hey, sip a little bit, shop a little bit, have a few beers, get ahead of your holiday shopping at Heads and Tails. All right, Neil, bringing you in here. Coming off a good win. It's got to feel pretty darn good getting so. I think obviously Gator fans now might be starting to come back down a little bit to life. They saw the line drop this past for the game on Saturday. Ole Miss is favored anywhere from 9.5 to 10.5 points. I think, obviously we're going to have to part and parcel this. Great win Saturday, but there's still a lot to be still said about the future of Billy Napier's tenure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the first talking point of the game has to be about that it was a great win. It was. It truly, genuinely was. I was authentically happy, not forced happiness, but I was authentically joyful about that win. It's a great feeling to beat LSU. They are a rival. They're not our biggest rival by any means, but they are a rival, and they've owned us recently. And on top of that, LSU is one of the few teams in the country that I think that clearly has more talent than Florida. I don't think that's a very common thing to look at the 247 Sports composite ratings and see a lot of teams on Florida's schedule that have been beating the Gators or that we deem to be tough opponents or likely losses that actually have more talent than Florida. It's just really Georgia, Texas, and LSU. Florida beat them, and that felt great. And even as one of Billy Napier's harshest critics, I got to admit that this is undeniably a better football team than what we saw in the first month of the season. I love what I saw from the secondary and the linebackers. The defensive line, I thought, did take some plays off, but when they did do their jobs, boy, did they deliver with 7 sacks, more than LSU's offensive line had allowed all season coming into the game. And of course, DJ Lagway is just absolutely spectacular, simply a phenomenal talent. The throw to Badger done by the goal line, just sensational. Basically beat LSU on 1.25 legs. And I'm thrilled about his future here. But I think we have to have a very, very sobering conversation about the overall health of this Gator football program. Because with all that I just said, this was one win we're talking about. Billy Napier came into this game 15 and 19, 10 and 19 against the Power Five, and two of those were against Central Florida and Vandy, and 1 and 10 against rivals. Does that one victory, as sweet as it was, overwrite all that data? The answer is no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't come close. It adjusts those numbers upward by 1. So now he's 16 and 19 overall, and 11 and 19 against the Power Five, and 2 and 10 against rivals. And all that would still be the case if LSU was the number one team in the country and undefeated. And they're very much not that. LSU, very clearly, as we saw, has their own litany of problems and is currently smack dab in the tailspin. And they weren't that good to begin with. I mean, they should have lost to South Carolina. As someone who's pretty open about my disdain for the Gamecock fan base, they got screwed by the officiating. LSU should have lost that football game. The ref stepped in and bailed them out. They have lost 3 straight games as it is, also lost to a USC team that's not very good themselves to start the year. And they sit at, I think, a tainted 6-4. Like I said, with South Carolina, they should have lost that game. They should be 5-5. And they very well could lose to Vandy next week. And what I saw on social media, not entirely, but not an insignificant minority either, was a fan base that was sarcastically or even mockingly asking the Napier critics, myself included, if I still wanted to fire Billy Napier, as if one win is supposed to change minds, my mind specifically. And the fact that he beat Utah in his first ever game. Well, he beat Utah. See, he can beat big teams. He can win the big games. He beat Tennessee last year. He can beat rivals too. Those 3 big wins equate to one big win a year. Is that supposed to be some kind of KO data point that just defeats the fact that he has the worst record of any Gator coach since the 1940s and by himself has the same number of losing seasons as Ron Zook, Will Muschamp, and Jim McElwain combined? Is that where we are as a program right now? Is one big win a year all we can expect? Because like I said, when Scott Strickland put out that letter announcing Napier would be retained, I'm in the acceptance phase of the grief. I accept where we are. I'm a Gator in all kinds of weather. If I was truly a bandwagoner, like some idiots claim, I would have dumped the Gator fandom 4 failed coaches ago and become a Bama fan. I didn't do that because the orange and blue courses through my veins. But having said that, I accept that the powers that be have the ultimate say in this, and I don't. So the standard that they push for is what we as a program can reasonably expect as our ceiling. So not even just Chris now. I'll open it up to Gator Nation as a whole in the comment section on YouTube. If you want to comment on social media, if you're watching this clip there too, go for it. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on what I'm about to say. Year 1, 6-6. I'll throw out the bowl game. I'll be nice. That's a skeleton team against Oregon State. I'm not even going to count that. Year 1, 6-6. Year 2, 5-7. Year 3, FSU's really bad. Even I think we'll beat them. Either 6-6 or 7-5. Billy Napier's coming back in 25, and I accept that as well. This win does not change my stance. I don't think he deserves a 4th season. Like I said, with the horrors we watched against Miami and A&M that came before it, Tennessee was unforgivable. Unforgivable doesn't mean let's see how the next 6 games go. It means unforgivable. So my mind hasn't changed a bit, but that is just me personally. We all know that Napier is coming back. So, Gator Nation, I'm going to ask you, what is the thought process behind this? If you were someone who genuinely supports this move, and not just because he's the coach and go Gators and all kinds of weather, if you genuinely believe that Napier coming back is what needs to happen, I want to ask you why. What is the standard for Gator football moving forward? What do we need to see next season out of this team with essentially the exact same schedule, just with inverted locations? Are we going to be okay with something like 5-7, 6-6, 7-5? Are we okay with basically becoming Iowa or South Carolina or Purdue, where one big win a year is all we can look forward to, and then we just ride that to a 6-6 or 7-5 record every year, maybe with an 8-4 thrown in there once every 5 years? Are we supporting him because we are just going to be content with one big win a year now and being in contention for bowl eligibility? Or are we bringing him back with the assumption that things have to be better next year? And do we say, okay, year four, gotta make the CFP, gotta contend for a title? Let me know in the comments down below. And Chris, you're the host. You have the first crack at the response here.
Yeah, no, I'm actually genuinely curious from our fan base what they think too, because I talked a little bit about it in the instant recap show that dropped earlier in the week, and I said, listen, 5-5 is not the Gator standard whatsoever, right? And next year, I can understand the argument of, I don't know about understand, but I can hear the argument the other side has is okay. You've got a quarterback in DJ Lagway who's a generational player, right? And he might have the ability to raise the ceiling to a level that this team otherwise couldn't hit without him. And clearly that's the case with the elevated play this past Saturday. He's 3-0 as a starter when he finishes a game in totality. And he gets a full offseason now with this staff that recruited him, this young cohort of players that Billy Napier has recruited and accumulated the talent over the last 3 years. And now it all leads to the fourth year, this moment, right? And I guess that is the defense in this situation of okay, he gets one more year to prove it going forward. But I will say, for me, I mean, I think going into this year, you and I said it was he's got to win 7, 8 games to keep his job. That's likely not going to happen unless we get the seventh win maybe in the bowl game or we upset Ole Miss this Saturday. But next year, in my opinion, I'm going to say it right now. It's playoff or bust. And I don't know how you feel. I'd like to know too what the fans feel. But for me, that means you got to be 9, 10 wins at the end of the season competing for a berth in the CFP.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think if you're going to live in the territory of Napier's going to get a fourth year, so let's see what he can do, the supplementary piece of that statement has to be, well, he's got to make the playoff. It can't be let's say, all right, I'll be very generous. I'll give him an upset win over Ole Miss this week. Let's say he wins that, beats FSU, and truthfully, I don't even care about the bowl game. I really don't. So 7-5. Do you then say 8-4 is good enough? Because that's an improvement. 7-5 to 8-4, you got better. Is that going to be good enough? I don't know. To Scott Strickland, I'm sure it will because he is the last person in the world who's going to want to fire Billy Napier. So that's going to mean he's going to be back in 26. And at that point, Chris, you're looking at, oh no, you blink your eyes, a half decade has passed and you have nothing to show for it. Is that where we're going to be okay with being just so we can say that we stuck by our coach and we gave him time and we didn't just continue the Grand Central Station cycle of firing coaches every couple of years? Is that what we're okay with? Because I don't think we should be.
No, I don't. I don't think we should be either. I mean, I think you and I are aligned on this. We've been aligned throughout the whole season. I mean, I truly listen. At this point, I think Gator fans have been through the ringer on quarterbacks, and they've seen potential generational talents come and go. Cam Newton, Will Greer. We've had injury after injury
Jacoby
that have ended.
Brissett, even
Jacoby Brissett, we picked him over Jeff Driscoll. We've had injuries that have ended seasons prematurely in Graham Mertz last year. We've had some really bad luck. And I think Gator fans, like the argument is, okay, if we fire Billy Napier this year, he's gone. Even if you fire him next year, he might take his talents one more season and go somewhere else and then go to the NFL. So, I mean, I understand the fear there, but you never keep a coach just to keep one player. I guess but this is the ultimate defense now of keeping him is that next year he's going to have all the guys he's accumulated in talent for the last couple of recruiting cycles and in the transfer portal, and it's going to culminate in a playoff berth because otherwise, I agree. Like this isn't worth it whatsoever. It remains to be seen, and I think next year the other thing too, Neil, that we really have to consider is we are going to have a new university president come late Q1, maybe early Q2 next year. If the results on the field are not satisfactory to what the fan base wants, what maybe the board of trustees wants, or the booster brass that has real control over the money right now, at that point, if that president does care about athletics, which we hope they do, will have all the ammunition in the world to fire Scott Strickland and therefore get a new AD who likely fires potentially Billy Napier and we start all over from scratch next year and take
Well,
a tough financial year. Because I think that's the other component to this, and the other argument that we haven't really hit on is the financial piece to this, which, yes, you have the $26 million buyout of Billy Napier, but you also have, additional dollars you have to spend to relieve the army of staff that he hired, along with all of the coaching staff that he has. And then you have to bring in a new coach who you would think is an elite level coach, who you have to buy out at their school, bring them in, hire a whole new staff. I mean, it's an expensive proposition that is upwards of 35 to $45 million in 1 year.
well, all right. So a couple of things there. Number one, if we hire a president who doesn't care about athletics, nighty night. It's curtains for this football program. Number two, you mentioned the NIL and the dollars that we're going to be saving by not paying Billy Napier to go away. The problem is we heard talking points like this that are supposed to make us feel good, but are not accurate coming into this season. All the things we heard were going to be different, starting with the special teams. We hired an analyst to basically babysit Chris Couch. Well, Kentucky takes a kickback for a touchdown. We lose to Tennessee because we can't execute the fire drill correctly. Our usually reliable snapper snaps a ground ball on a field goal against Georgia. Texas, we have another substitution infraction on a field goal. And again, against LSU, there we were again lining up with 12 men for a freaking punt. So is it better than the last couple of years? Maybe, but not appreciably. It's still bad, which is the bottom line. And we shouldn't be sacrificing that paid staffer position to have a special teams unit that's still bad. And you can spin the wheel on this. We can talk about the NIL dollars. We can talk about how Billy Napier was going to hire an offensive coordinator. Remember that? We heard that rumor all off season long. Didn't happen. Then we heard, well, Russ Callaway is going to have more input in the offense. He's going to have more input in the play calling. Is he? Well, maybe, but if he is, it's not really helping. Florida's 80th in the country in total offense this year. Mississippi State, by the way, which has a tenth of the talent that Florida has and who we beat, is ahead of us. And by the way, those stats don't even account for the boneheaded play calls against Tennessee. We can go back to the NIL talking point. We heard that Florida finally had the roster it needs to have to compete in the SEC this year. What happens? Well, we get bitch slapped by Miami on our home field, a team that isn't really that great. We saw against Georgia Tech, they have a lot of holes. In fact, we saw against us, they have a lot of holes. It was just a matter of time before they got exposed. And then A&M does the same thing 2 weeks later, and then Texas on the road. And then our brilliant in-game coach manages to overcome the talent that he amassed this offseason to hand a game away to Tennessee. And now we are 5-5. And so now the talking point is, well, we're going to save the buyout money and use those millions of dollars on NIL. Well, I'm sorry, but where in the hell was that money the last 2 years? Because all I see is 5-5 this year after 5-7 last year and 6-6 the year before that. This year's 5-5, by the way, with 3 losses that weren't even competitive. And then there's the fact, again, like I think you said earlier in the start of the show, every time Napier wins a big game, we think we have the momentum, and then the team goes out and just lays a big fat spoiled egg. Like he beat Utah in his very first ever game. Oh my God, we have a great coach in Napier. Very next week, lose to Kentucky. Then a near catastrophe against the 1-11 USF team the week after that. Lose to Tennessee. Well, but hey, we beat A&M on the road, demolish South Carolina. Things are looking up. No, they're not. We lose to Vandy, give away the FSU game, get embarrassed again in a bowl game. Again, that's not going to really hold that one against Napier. But again, it's a 6-6 team. Next year, what happens? Terrible start, lost to Utah, beat Tennessee to recover, or so it seems. Then a dud against Charlotte, another embarrassing loss to Kentucky. This one's not even close. But then we rebound to beat South Carolina. So, okay, looking good. 5-2, going to smash that 5.5 win total. No, we're not. We lose 2-6 Arkansas and then lose 5 straight to finish the year 5-7. And we know what happened this year. Pick up right where we left off. Terrible start. Embarrassed by Miami and A&M. We beat an all-time bad Mississippi State team that's 2-8 right now with a terrible loss to Toledo on its resume. A terrible Central Florida team that's 4-6 and I think 2-5 in the Big 12. Hand away that Tennessee game with yet more bad coaching. And then we get embarrassed by Texas after we blow out Kentucky and lose to Georgia in a game that I don't think even the harshest Napier critic can really hold against him. And then we beat LSU. And again, with recruiting, again, peaks and valleys. And there too, we had a lot of momentum last year. Top 5 recruiting class. Oh, Billy's got his guys now. Blue chip Billy completely falls apart. Here we are again with momentum. Well, are we going to keep it this time? We have some smoke for French, right? We just got Tramel Jones away from FSU. That's nice. We have more smoke coming in from other guys. Well, you better, because not that long ago, you weren't even in the top 50 of the country. So it's just an everlasting roller coaster of peaks and valleys. With all of that said, why am I supposed to believe now that this current momentum we have on the recruiting trail, that this current momentum that we have on the field, that this current team that I see that played hard, sure, that looks a lot better than it did earlier in the year. Why should I believe this is anything other than just another peak in the pattern? I'm at a loss. I have nothing.
Yeah,
There's
I don't
no
know either.
data.
And it's gonna be really telling this Saturday. I think we're gonna get our first clue this Saturday against Ole Miss, where Florida is slightly over a touchdown underdog and 22% chance to win according to ASPN, FPI, and a lot of the models out there. We'll release Dustin's model and his prediction later in the week. It'll give us maybe a little bit of a clue, but yeah, I'm curious as well. And if the NIL dollars end up not coming, we'll know by signing day if the NIL dollars are truly there or not, and the support is there, and there's been a change of tune. But it's unfortunate it's taken this long for them to come to this realization. But here's to hoping it does work out. I do. I think it is time to switch gears, though. I mean, I think we at least brought this thing back down to reality here on the top. Neil, let's talk at least about the game in isolation and how good it felt to win this game. I mean, this was a good win. There were a lot of good things put on the field. Obviously, you got to talk about DJ Lagway. You've got to talk about this defense having a season high 7 sacks. Elijah Badger coming back from injury, putting up a career high or nearly a career high in yardage. This was a great win. I think the most impressive win this season.
Oh, sure, no doubt. And part of that's because the other wins we had were against terrible teams. I mean, Kentucky's awful. Central Florida is completely collapsed, and I mean, I don't really think Sanford's worth anything to even the most Pollyanna fans. But no, by far the most impressive game Florida's played all year. My reservations about being able to continue this trajectory don't mean that this game wasn't impressive in a vacuum, because it was the best coach game, I thought, the best called game. I think that's a little bit different. The play calls, I still disagree with some calls here and there, but that's a nitpicking argument we can get to at a different point. I thought for the most part, this was the best called game that Napier had all year. Florida's defense, I thought, did struggle to set the edge at times and gave Nussmeier way too much time to throw. Now, when they did get there, they really got there. Like I said at the start, 7 sacks is impressive, no matter how you want to slice it. So I think even the biggest gripe from this game was a positive, because you'd like to not see such feast or famine from the defensive line, but again, 7 sacks is 7 sacks, which is almost 2 a quarter, which is terrific. So no complaining about that. Another great game from Aaron Gates. Just rattling off my talking points because we're condensed for time, but Aaron Gates was fantastic. Dijon Johnson, a huge TFL early, played great, I thought, in the back half of the defense, with maybe one exception. There was one play I think he got beat on. The rest of the plays he put on tape I thought were all positive. Shamar James is everywhere, 11 tackles. Cam Jackson, the ultimate revenge game on his end. If you follow our socials, in fact, it's on our YouTube channel as well. You saw the interview I did with him. This was personal for him. He took this personally. Michael Jordan meme. He really put this one at the front of his mind all off season, because for those of you who don't know, long story very short, he wanted to be an LSU Tiger growing up. They didn't offer him. He went to Memphis. He came to the portal. He wanted to go to LSU again. They turned him down again. 2 different coaching staffs. First is Ed Orgeron. Then it was Brian Kelly's staff. They both turned him down. So he becomes a Gator, and he goes out and sets out to prove them wrong. And boy, did he. I don't think he had that many statistics, but the game tape was pretty nice. He did his assignment a lot. He held his gap pretty well, meaning that guys off the edge like Tyreek Sapp could go and feast around him because Jackson stayed home and plugged up his area. So truly a team effort there on the defense. Tyreek Sapp, again, phenomenal game from him. I mean, you'd like to not see Sharif Denson get beat on the touchdown. Dijon Johnson did get beat on one throw and the receiver just dropped it. But the point is the mistakes were very few and far between. Whereas I think in most games this year, you could point to 30 or 40 pieces of bad game tape at ease, like from memory. Here, they're a lot more sparsely populated. Like you have to look more or you have to look harder or longer in the game tape to find mistakes, to find a busted coverage. Florida did a lot of good things in this game, Chris. I mean, because I did spend a year, or because I just spent a year, I spent 3 years on my high school staff, my high school football team staff as an assistant. I'm just naturally trained to nitpick stuff like this. There's not nearly as much to nitpick from the Gators in this game as there were in pretty much any other game the rest of the year. And then, of course, DJ Lagway. I mean, he's a low hanging fruit talking point. I think everyone who's ranging from a complete non ball knower to a casual fan to a diehard and everywhere in between on that scale is talking about him. You got to give some shout outs to Elijah Badger and Jamari DK. They ran some nice routes. Offensive line did pretty well for the most part. Very few missed assignments there. Three-headed monster at running back worked very well. Montreal Johnson making a cameo appearance was nice to see. Love what that guy's given to this program. He deserved some moments being a Louisiana kid in his own. Love what Jacoby Jackson and Jaden Ball can do with the football. Those guys run pissed. They run legitimately angry at everyone who's in their way. But this was a DJ Lagway legacy game. He's different. He's just a different kind of athlete. The throw down to the goal line to Badger, he's stepping up in the pocket and it's a jump pass of sorts because he leaves his feet. His body isn't even squared. No worries. He takes care of that in mid-flight as he's in this, like as he's off the ground. He manages to go through those fundamentals and squares his shoulder and releases a dime. Perfect. Perfect ball. You can't say it should have been an inch or two more to the left or the right or with more arc. No, it was perfect. And I have to say, like you said earlier, Chris, you don't keep a coach just to keep a player. I think that sets a very bad precedent. This is one that hurts the argument because Lagway is just that special. And we didn't even get the running version of him because, again, he's playing on 1.25 legs. So long story short, I have long-term concerns. But if we're going to analyze this game in isolation, it is definitely one to feel good about. A great team performance, a great team win. Hold that L. It is a beautiful, beautiful feeling to wake up knowing that the Gators have finally snapped that LSU hex.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, it really. I can't think of a time where I woke up Sunday and it just felt a little bit sweeter. This one just felt a little bit sweeter. The coffee tasted better. The drive to church in the morning, was lovely. It just everything about my Sunday was a little bit better because we beat LSU for the first time in almost 6 years, or in 6 years because it was 2018. So crazy to think. Glad we are finally here. All right, Neil, let's wrap this game up. Let's get to grades and then let's talk about Ole Miss before we get out of here. So give me your grades for this game.
Yeah. Offense gets a B minus. I thought it was a very good performance. I don't think it was a great one. 13 points in the first 3 quarters isn't fantastic. LSU did dominate the time of possession, so I know that's going to hurt, but Florida also had 2 3-and-outs and 2 more drives where they got 1 first down and then punted. But the fourth quarter was just pure domination by Florida. 2 drives, 2 touchdowns, a lot of clock eaten off, and then the one big run by Baugh. Some great plays by DJ Lagway, great blocking by the O-line on the Baugh touchdown run. So the offense had a good day, not a great day, not a bad day, just a good day, B minus. Defense gets a B plus. I would have loved to have seen Florida get off the field on third down, like at all. Part of why LSU owned the time of possession statistic. LSU converted 13 third downs. 10 of those third down conversions were on 3rd and 6 or more, including a 3rd and 20, a 3rd and 14 that LSU got to be a 4th and 3. This actually wasn't even a conversion because they only got 11 yards on 3rd and 14, but then they converted on the ensuing 4th and 3. They also converted a 3rd and 12 and a pair of 3rd and 10s and a 3rd and 9. So if you want to know why the defense isn't getting an A or even an A minus, that's why, because you just can't have that. But 7 sacks, allowing just 1 touchdown, despite LSU dominating the time of possession statistic, the ultimate bend but don't break performance, forcing 4 field goals, one of which missed and some really good coverage on LSU's talented receivers like Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, and Kyron Lacey. So again, a lot of good stuff on tape. So B plus. Special teams, they're going to get a neutral grade of a B. Did not allow a punt return, which was good. Nothing calamitously stupid like kickoffs out of bounds or missed extra points or bad snaps or anything catastrophic like that, which is all great. And honestly, special teams, I realize it's one of the units that the less you mention them, the better it typically means that they're doing. Smack did hit 2 field goals, one of which was a 55-yarder, so he gets props for that. But I mean, Chris, you can't line up with 12 guys on a punt again. You just like that's got to stop at some point. So B, overall solid, but that's the kind of stuff that just drives me insane. Coaching, I'm going to give a solid B as well. This was again a good coaching job. A B grade is nothing to be embarrassed about. Team was ready to play. They played hard. They played for their coach. They played for their teammates. Assignment football on both sides of the ball for the most part. Some of the play calls on offense were questionable. Like, for example, right after forcing a turnover, I would have liked to see Florida take a shot. Instead, it was going to be a running play before Aiden Mizell committed a false start. But regardless, why? Why would you not exploit that momentum? Why would you not just take a shot, go for the kill? And also on the first drive of the game, and I know players have to execute. I get that. But again, it's game 9 of year 3. First drive of the game. We have a holding, we have a false start, and then we have 12 men on the punt. Again, like how? How is this still happening? I'm not even mad anymore. I'm just honestly astounded. I truly don't know how it's even possible to continue to not count to 11 correctly. So that's on the coaches because it just continues to happen over and over and over again. But like I said, again, the guys did play hard. They played for themselves, for their teammates, for the logo. A lot of great effort plays. We saw the team that was angry and wanted to prove something. I do like that. And I know sometimes the best thing you can do as a coach is just get out of the way. Like when you have a generational talent like DJ Lagway, sometimes the smartest thing you can do is just do nothing and let that tremendous athlete you have just will your team to victory with his incredible talents. And I thought Napier did that for the most part because we got to see all the skills that DJ Lagway has on display. So coaching gets a B. Fans get an A. Only reason it's not an A plus is because there were some empty seats. It
Oh my
wasn't
God,
packed to
Neil. Oh
capacity.
my, it was pretty packed by the
It
end of the
was it
game.
was pretty packed,
Oh
but
my
no, it was.
God.
I gave them an A. I gave them an A. I gave them an A. It was an excellent job by the fan base. But it also
Oh,
like if it was 2019 Auburn fans get an A plus. 2018 LSU fans get an A plus. 2021 Alabama fans get an A plus. Like 97 FSU fans get an A plus. That's an or Ole Miss in 15 even A plus. This or LSU in 08 A plus. This was not that. So, but again, they did a great job. They were loud. They caused LSU to have to burn 2 timeouts. So they did their job and they understood the assignment. So A, excellent. Overall B, which is very good. It's a very good win. It's not an A or an A plus because LSU is not a fantastic team, and those A plus grades are saved for when you beat an elite team like that. Like going into Death Valley in 03 and beating the eventual national champs, that's an A plus grade. Beating the Ole Miss team I just mentioned in 15 by 28 points, that's an A plus grade. This wasn't that because LSU is not that great. But again, you put an opponent in front of Florida, you tell them go play the game. By the way, these guys have made fun of you relentlessly for the past 5 years. So yeah, have fun, go play the game. And they did, and they won the game. So B, very good. I'm genuinely happy. I think there's still plenty of room to improve, and I think that's what we're going to talk about next.
absolutely. Yeah, let's move on to the Ole Miss game. So obviously, I'm going to be previewing this a little bit later in the week, dropping my prediction, giving a more in-depth show for that. But Ole Miss, I mean, they're coming to town now. One Lane Kiffin, who a lot of fans are looking to see, wanted at one point to see him be the head coach on the sidelines. That does not appear it's going to happen, but he will be coming here this Saturday, bringing a top 10 Ole Miss team once again to the Gators home for the first time since 2015 when Ole Miss was number 3, like you mentioned before. Florida went on to win that game. A quarterback had a breakout performance in that game. Will Greer, redshirt freshman? Could we see a true freshman in DJ Lagway have the similar performance? We're probably going to need it to win the game. But what are you looking for, Neil, in this matchup where, a lot? I mean, listen, bowl eligibility is on the line. We win this game, we are bowl eligible. You don't have to worry about Florida State next week, and a win over a rival is just gravy at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Ole Miss and LSU definitely have different talent levels on their team, but they're still very dangerous. Ole Miss also just doesn't make a ton of mistakes aside from the Kentucky game. Generally speaking, they don't make mistakes. Jackson Dart is a very, very dangerous passer. I want to see Florida play exactly the way they did against LSU with the same intensity, with the same ferocity. I want to see them play assignment sound. Obviously, the game plan is a little bit different because Jackson Dart is a little different of a QB than Garrett Nussmeier is. He's definitely more dangerous in terms of what happens if you give him more than 3 or 4 seconds to throw the ball. He can go through his progressions a bit quicker and he can make, I think, a larger variety of throws than I've seen from Nussmeier. But I mean, the defensive line is going to have to step it up. They're going to have to get home more. Like I said, 7 sacks against LSU is great. Some of those were coverage sacks as opposed to the defensive line just winning their one-on-one battles. So I want to see that defensive line take a step forward. And I want to see Florida's offense just let it rip. I want to see DJ Lagway just be the DJ Lagway we saw in the fourth quarter. I don't know that I want to see him run because I'm terrified of him getting hurt in this game and not having him for FSU. And suddenly that becomes a potential loss, despite how terrible they are. So let's play within yourselves. But I think that Florida can win the game, honestly, if they do the things that they're supposed to do and they don't self-destruct, because they do have more talent than Ole Miss does. The way that they did have more talent than Tennessee, and coaching gave that game away after the players fought hard. So again, I mean, maybe you could take Caden Lee. Maybe you say that Jordan Watkins are frightening for Ole Miss, but they don't really have a true terror on their team, like a Malik Neighbors or like a Brian Thomas that they had the last couple of years, or that LSU had the last couple of years. And LSU obviously didn't have anything like that this year. So they don't have anyone that really frightens me like that, but they are just a very good team that doesn't make a ton of mistakes. And Florida's going to have to play their best if they want to beat them.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely gonna be really interesting. I think Florida has a chance to win this game, and there's a lot of moving parts. I think the game plan for Florida, even from an offensive standpoint, has to be different for this one. Where I mean, I said it in the preview for LSU. Florida is gonna have to. Florida had to protect Lagway and let him just throw the ball, be DJ Dimes. He could not use his legs, and that's exactly what happened. That's why we won the game on Saturday. Ole Miss, it's going to have to be a similar performance, but I think we're probably going to need a little bit more out of the run game. We ran the ball actually very effectively, LSU. I know the total doesn't indicate it with 113 yards, but the average was I think 6.6 a carry. That, I mean, if we had run the ball a lot more, like twice that, then you're looking at a 200-yard performance, which was a key that I had in the game. So, all right, well, let's
But
talk
again,
about
we didn't
your
have the ball for very long. LSU
right.
made possession like 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that we had 18 minutes of offense and 313 yards is actually highly efficient. If you extrapolate that over maybe another 12 minutes, Florida could have had over 500 yards in this game.
The
But,
yards per play was very high.
yeah, no doubt. All right, well, that's kind of maybe a key to a game, a key to a game. Let's talk about your keys to the game, your percent chance to win, and ultimately your prediction for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to need to see Florida's defensive line get home a lot quicker on Jackson Dart. You cannot give him 4, 5, 6 seconds to throw the ball like Garrett Nussmeier had at times. The coverage sacks, I think, are still possible because I don't think Ole Miss's receivers are really a whole lot better than LSU's are. They're good. Like I said, Caden Lee and Jordan Watkins are good receivers. They're not like a first 7 or 8 picks in the NFL draft level good, like LSU had 2 of last year. So the coverage is going to have to continue to be good, but the defensive line has to do its part. Get home, get sacks, and hey, rip the ball out like we saw them do once against LSU. So that's the first key. The second key, nothing bad on special teams. I mean, I feel like that's another piece of low hanging fruit, but I mean, we've just seen too many things go too wrong in too long a period of time for me to not worry about that. So Let's make sure we count to 11. Let's make sure the snaps are clean. Let's not miss field goals from 30 yards out like Smack did, which didn't really even matter against Texas. But in a close game, it could. So, let's just execute those things, do the things that these guys were recruited to Florida to do. Obviously, Smack is very capable of hitting those kinds of kicks. So let's see him do that. And then the third key is, like you said, DJ Lagway, but maybe with his legs. I don't know if he's going to be able to run like he can if he's fully healthy. But I think if he at least shows it, Ole Miss is in trouble. If they're forced to respect that running ability, if he even does it just once and then backs off it, I think it opens up a lot more for him as a passer. So, or if he doesn't, like you said, the run game as a whole, Jacoby Jackson, Jaden Baugh can step up and produce on the ground in his absence. In some fashion, Ole Miss has to have reason to respect the ground game so that, I mean, let's say Lagway can't run the ball. Let's say he's not able to. Well, then a play action deep bomb serves the exact same purpose. So something that can force Ole Miss to defend that box. And I think Florida's going to be good.
All right. Percent chance to win and your ultimate prediction.
I'm gonna say 20% chance for Florida. I think it's not a guaranteed loss, but it's a probable loss. I think that Ole Miss is just so much better coached than Florida. I think that they're consistently better coached than Florida. We saw, like I said, I feel like this was the best coached game against LSU of the season, but Lane Kiffin coaches well pretty consistently. I think he does get a little too in love with analytics at times, maybe to his detriment, but he's clearly a smart X's and O's in-game coach, and he clearly knows how to run an offense. And I'm sorry, but I still don't believe that Billy Napier does. So I think that's got a lot to do with why Ole Miss is favored, even though Florida does have the talent advantage if you look at 247 Sports composite. But again, Florida has a chance. It's in the swamp. The Gators do have more talent. They are playing better recently. Ole Miss also is playing their best ball of the season now, but you never know what could happen in the swamp. So 20% chance, I think, for Florida. And score prediction, I've been going back and forth on this. Do I call an Ole Miss blowout? Do I call an Ole Miss close win, or do I think that Florida steals it? Because I think if we're talking patterns and data and evidence, I think that Napier's already gotten his one big win a year. Utah's first year, Tennessee last year, and LSU this year. I don't think he's capable of another one. Could be wrong though, because Florida's playing their best ball right now. I'm just not seeing it. I think Ole Miss is going to make enough plays. I think that if they don't make enough plays, Lane Kiffin can coach them around their talent delta being a negative. I guess I think that there's just too much going in Ole Miss's favor, from their quarterback play to Princely Umanmielen being a beast. I'm gonna really love to watch him wreak havoc on Saturday. And between their receivers being very, very good, that I think something breaks at some point and Ole Miss makes just one more play than Florida. So I'll say 31-24 Ole Miss.
Okay. So the Florida cover, unless the line moves severely
Cover.
the other direction,
It'll be
but
a close game. It'll be a close game.
yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to give too much away. I do agree, close game. I'm gonna get a little bit more in the data myself here before I do my preview show and have my ultimate prediction. But Neil, I think tonight, you laid it all out there for the fans. Certainly, a little bit down to reality. We had to Napier's got a long way to go. Napier's got a long way to go, but he has an opportunity this Saturday to continue to change that narrative for this fan base, to give them hope and give belief that keeping him for an additional year was the right decision. But like I said, long way to go to get there. Saturday is another data point in the other direction that could ultimately keep helping him dig out of the hole that he is in right now. Want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. Make sure that if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below. Share this with your friends, your family. Word of mouth is a great way to get this out there. Leave us some feedback and rate and review the show if you're an audio listener. 5-star rating helps us reach more of Gator Nation. Like I said, we've got a big preview show coming up later in the week. We're going to be bringing back Dustin's model for the All Kinds Weather forecaster. Dustin is back. He's gotten into the lab again. He's got some good data for us to compile through. We're going to really get into that. We'll get into fan comments and questions. We'll do a mailbag again like we did last week. So make sure to look out for that tweet and drop your question in there. And Neil, I want to let you go ahead. I think you have an article you're going to be teasing here, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, well, article just dropped actually. Florida Gators boot reeling LSU back to Baton Rouge with 27-16 win. And that I think I think that serves its purpose. That title right there tells you my mood. I'm happy about this. I really am. I mean, if you follow us on Twitter, you see all the shots I've been taking at LSU. I made fun of their song "Callin' Baton Rouge." I made fun of Brian Kelly, and in between tweeting out DJ Lagway highlights, I am getting my get back at the LSU fans knowing the last 5 years. It truly is great. And like I said all year, I really want to believe in Billy Napier. And I wrote this in the article that I like the guy and I want to see him succeed at Florida, but this just isn't enough to make one win over LSU isn't enough to make me believe it. It's a start, but it took a lot more than one bad loss for me to lose faith in Napier. And it's going to take a lot more than one decent win, not even a great win, but a decent win for me to regain it. And I think we'll just have to wait and see as the data unfurls itself.
Absolutely. We'll leave it at that. We'll see if a new cycle has begun or if we are just repeating the same old circle over and over again here in year 3 of the Billy Napier tenure. Want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the All Kinds of Forecast. Please, once again, subscribe down below, share this with your friends and family, leave a like, leave a comment, your reaction to the win and a preview of the Ole Miss game. We will see you later in this week. Go Gators. In all kinds of weather, we shall all stick together.